What's up, everyone? This is Ignatius, and today I'm bringing to you my newest build in the 0.3 season, something that I'm starting to call Explode-a-Zon, a song of ice and ice. This build is a bow build, however, it relies exclusively on ice damage, using Ice Shot and Herald of Ice for its primary clear. And you'll notice that when you start stacking this damage on Amazon and you start hitting pretty good levels of crit, there isn't going to be anything that clears incredibly large mobs faster than this build. So I'm very excited to bring it to you all today. As always, I have a very nice Mobalytics guide right up for this build. I talk a bit about why I did this build, how it plays. I have an FAQ section, and then trade search links for all of the gear pieces. There is no, campaign guide for this build. If you want to run an Amazon and reroll a new char, I'd just follow my Hollow Palm guide, and then you can switch over to this. Most of the gear from Hollow Palm does switch over to this build. The Headhunter is optional, so if you had an Ingenuity in here, that would be fine. There are 3 things that need pretty good consideration in order to move from Hollow Palm to this build. The first 2, of course, are the fact that you have stuff in your hands, a bow and a quiver, and they are very expensive. The third is the amulet. On Hollow Palm, we run a melee skills amulet. Now we want a prod skills amulet with spirit. These 3 are expensive, and the build in general is quite expensive, though it could work on a bit of a budget. I definitely built it as a way to say this is an even faster way to clear maps. So that's kind of what's going on here. Alright, my goal with this video is to condense this guide down to as quickly of a delivery as possible. But without further ado, I've dove down here to a map to show you what the general clear looks like. So basically, there are 2 things that are going to happen for general clear. One is we have a mana-free, 0 mana bow shot that we have socketed for 2 reasons. One is for high attack speed, which gives us general clear that we can fire around while we're moving around the map, and we don't want to expend our mana. While doing that, Living Lightning in combination with innervate and the fact that we stack a lot of flat cold, this ability is going to proc innervate and ice bite constantly, so that way our other attacks are more potent. Now, when we're not free bow shotting, which is generally when we come up against a big mob or some really tanky rares, we're going to switch to Ice Shot. Now, this Ice Shot linkage is pretty straightforward damage, and I do think it's not showing the accurate number here. Sometimes when you pull and click in Rakiatas, it'll toggle back and forth. But I've got a screenshot of this combat DPS, which I can put on the screen, which is around 500k, and that is including this 40% less damage on the Nova Proj. Between the Ice Shot and the 6-link Herald of Ice and our crit cap from Amazon, this is going to clear basically everything, but if you want a little bit more potency and spread, you drop a Tornado Shot and you shoot the Ice Shot in the Tornado Shot. So let me show that progression right here. There's some monsters running up. I'm going to bow shot them. You can see we procced Innervate already. As we keep shooting new monsters, we'll probably get an Ice Bite in there. It does depend on the map and whether they have, ailment resists and things like that. Now we're going to come up to another mob, and we're going to use our Ice Shot here. Boom. Everything gone. Boom. It does cost a lot of mana to use it. Let me turn this shrine off. But you don't have to use it very often. Just 1 or 2 clicks here and there, and then if you have a trailing monster, you can run away and shoot them with that free bow shot. That's pretty much all there is to it. I'll go ahead and show you the Tornado Shot thing. So you drop the Nado, and you fire an Ice Shot in the Tornado. And you can see how the spread is much denser, and we get a lot more free projectiles from that. I use this for like abysses. You can run in the middle and shoot off a big one, and I also use it for ritual. You just kind of stand there in the ritual and fire, fire, fire. It's really, really great. Next, I want to give a quick mention of the other gems that are in this build and what purpose they're serving, etc. So defensively, we're running Wind Dancer and Ghost Dance. Pretty standard setup on these. We have a Precision 1 on Wind Dancer, which helps our accuracy, which helps our attack speed, and also helps our crit cap with Amazon. So the accuracy 1 is really, really important. And then, of course, we're running Roa, and we've got the Brutus Brain, so that Roa never takes damage, which, is really, really helpful. Final thing I'll mention is this set of 3 links here. I would say these are actually all optional. and they're kind of cheesy. The snipe tech can delete a pinnacle boss in one shot if you set it up right, and it's kind of fun to do it. The freezing salvo tech can be kind of helpful on map bosses just for locking them down and making them easier to kill. And then the barrage you can use while sprinting through abysses. So the ideal is you throw down a tornado shot, run into it, and shoot. But the other thing you can do is as you're running up to a large group of monsters, you hit the barrage and then fire. And it's going to, double the fire basically. So yeah, those are just kind of two options you can mix and match. Now the idea on a pinnacle boss, I will mention the mechanic here, and you can try it out if you want, or you could just, leave this linkage out entirely. If you've never really looked at the snipe gem, notice that it has 4 different phases, and if you proc 3 of the 4, it's an incredible amount of damage. And the idea is that you have a timing moment, and you're also going to consume the freeze in order to do an icy blast. And if you look at the percentages here, we have 587 on the basic arrow, then we have 1,600% on the explosion from timing, and then we have 4,260% with 100% cold conversion and 50% more on uniques if we consume a freeze for an icy blast. So when you add this up with crit damage, it's just an incredible amount of single target boom. And basically what you would do is you'd run up to a boss and you wouldn't want Nova projectiles on still because it's a boss. So you're going to swap out something else. I'd recommend cold attunement so you get more cold damage. Boss comes out, you can shoot them a few times with your regular cold damage, and then use your freezing salvo for an incredible amount of cold buildup. After boss is frozen, you hit barrage, and then you're going to snipe them and time the snipe for a perfect timing shot. Boom. If you're right next to the boss, you achieve something in PoE called shotgunning, and that is where you are so close to the object and the hitbox of the monster that all of the projectiles are hitting them and counting as hitting. So this bossing tech, and if you achieve the perfect timing and the consumption of freeze, will delete Zesht in one shot. Kind of isn't a one shot because there is a condition, right? You need to freeze him and all that stuff. But in general, it can be kind of helpful. And the freezing salvo has little niche moments where it's really nice. If you run up to an essence monster and double click it, you can just salvo, boom, everything's gone. And just as you're running along, everything I use is socketed with this proj acceleration. And that's because it's not only giving us a ton more damage from the proj acceleration as damage node here, but it also just makes our abilities work a lot more seamlessly. Things come down faster, the freezing salvo is over faster, that kind of thing. So these other links are all here. I do think, this is kind of funny, but I do think I can scale the build down to just an ice shot and a Herald of Ice and clear everything. I think it could work like that, no problem. So everything else here is just icing on the cake, extra things for extra niche moments in your content removal. All right, so we need to talk about gear and tree. I'm not going to do an in-depth overview on gear and tree. I do think a lot of the principles are well understood now among people who are running bows or who are transitioning from Holopalm, but I do want to say a few things. Let's start with gear. If you switch over from Holopalm, almost everything can be ported over. I have a headhunter here that is not required. It's just more fun, and it's a little bit faster in maps. This could easily be your ingenuity from Holopalm. And there's only 3 things that need to change. The first is obviously, well, the first 2 are obvious. You didn't have anything in your hands in Holopalm, and now you have a bow, and you have a quiver. A couple of things about the bow and quiver. You're on Amazon, so accuracy equals damage, and it's tons of damage. You'll notice when you pull one off, pull one on. Another thing you can do with the bow, and I do have the trade links in the Mobalytics, and you can adjust them as needed. But you can pull up a bow that doesn't have a certain Abyss mod, and then re-roll it for that Abyss mod, and that can save you a lot of currency. For instance, this one right here, it's got a roll of 40% extra, 47% fizz and 100 accuracy. That's not bad, but if otherwise this bow was like extremely best in slot, and it is looking pretty good for only 3 div, you could buy it, and then you could re-roll that. My favorite modifier in the re-roll is bonuses gained from quiver. This is really, really powerful because the quiver we're running is a crit quiver. And between this and the tree, we're at almost 100% increased bonuses, and we have 22% crit chance in the implicit, and we got 32 in the affix, and those can both be higher. So we're massively increasing our crit chance without using anything on the tree with this. and the quiver buff nodes on the tree, and then just the quiver itself. And then on top of that, we have all our other crit nodes on the tree, so we can use those as well. Gloves, helmet, and boots is all evasion stacking. We run Stalking Panther. It's been super, super OP this league. It lets us run an ES chest or whatever the heck chest you want, and then still have tons and tons of evasion. We're at 76 in here, and it usually goes up to around 80 in combat. And that's just from these 3 pieces of gear, which is outrageous and incredible. Third thing that has to change from Holopalm is the amulet. In Holopalm, you ran a melee skills amulet that was super cheap to craft. I have a direct crafting guide for that if you're interested. It's like a 4-div craft for a perfect amulet. In this one, we obviously want projectile skills, though it's technically optional and does hike up the price by like 30 to 40 divs to add projectile skills. And then we need 60 spirit total. So between the implicit and the affix, we need to go up to 60. So that way we can ride a Roa and we can still socket a Precision 1 into our Wind Dancer. As far as the chest, like I said, you can run whatever you want. I just like flat ES. Helps with the tankiness. I might try out some unique options here in a little bit. Should be pretty fun. And then for rings, the only required affix on ring is some mana leech. You'll definitely want that. I always opt for rarity and try on all my characters to hit 100% rarity. And then you're looking for flat damage. Cold is ideal, but I don't have cold here. Our cold skills do convert to cold, so it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. And then you need to solve all your resists with rings as well. Moving over to the tree, and I'll start with jewels. One call out I want to make is that if you have anywhere where it's gain damage as extra and the element is not cold, you can fix that, and you may want to fix that especially on Herald Device with a gem called Embitter, which will convert these qualities of extra damage as whatever to extra damage as cold. This jewel is helpful, but not essential. And again, in the guide, I have a link which has one more generically that you can, adjust the filters for and find something that's within your budget for what you need. And then otherwise, the tree is fairly straightforward. It's an important call out here. This time lost is now down to like 1 to 3 div. But if you're looking at the top affix here, increased effect of notable passes in radius, this upgrades are struck through by an extra 0.23% base crit hit chance, which is really, really strong when you look at the math, as well as buffing all these other nodes which help our crit. So this jewel is really important, and it is very cheap now, which is outstanding. Otherwise, the rest of this tree is pretty standard. Compared to a Holopalm build, the other big priority is movement speed. So we're running a movement speed chain here. We've got movement here, here, and here. And we're also coming over here to this side to get more movement speed here and here. There is additional movement speed available, and I do see it on a lot of bow builds. You take a From Nothing for Vol Pact, and then you can allocate these ones here. I might do that in a future state of the build. Does seem really good, but this jewel by itself is like 20-30 div, so I chose to invest the money I had elsewhere. I think that's about it for the gems in the skill tree. I will mention, this isn't entirely perfectly refined. If you are, leaning towards one idea or another to try it out, just know that that isn't somehow less efficient because I made a guide. There's definitely lots of efficiencies that could be achieved here, both in the tree and in the gear. And if you're seeing them, then go for it. Last thing I want to mention is that Chilled Ground is everywhere in maps, and it's actually an affix that is associated with rarity. So if you're running the Omen of Chaotic Rarity, it's super likely that you're going to roll it. And I keep a pair of these nearby. Your speed is unaffected by slows. This is called Wanderlust. And if I get in a Chilled Ground map, I just swap these out and continue to move really fast. All right, it's time to wrap this up, and this video may come in under 15 minutes, which would be really, really efficient for me. Want to mention again the Mobalytics guide, and also if you see things that are wrong in here, feel free to call them out in my Discord. It helps me keep things up to date and fixed, especially true as the game has new patches and new changes and whatnot. The other thing I'll mention is my Discord server. I am going to create a channel for this build. I have one here for Holopalm where we have constant ongoing discussion over Holopalm technique, and I'm going to create a separate one for this Explode-a-Zon build as well. So come on over to the Discord if you're not a part of the Discord. Thank you, everyone, for the collaboration, support, and community building this season. The .3 season, in my opinion, has been fantastic. I have loved all the seasons, so I'm a bit biased. But yeah, I appreciate your all's participation and awesome contributions to the ongoing growth in our understanding of the game and our ability to delete things faster and faster. Have a good one.